Hello and welcome to the Pretentious Film Majors. I'm Justin Allison, self-professed Pixar expert, and we're here on Drexel University's campus to interview Matt Nolte, character art director on Pixar's new film, The Good Dinosaur.
That creature protected you. What is his name?
I don't know.
I name him, I keep him. Killer.
Stinky!
Violet.
Spike!
Lunatic!
Spot!
Okay, cool. So one of my favorite bonus features that's been on recent Pixar Blu-rays is Paths to Pixar, where they go through how employees, ended up there. So what's your path to Pixar?
Okay. Well, I drew as a kid, so that's where it started. My parents were supportive, and they helped me meet people at Disney studios. There was no Pixar when I was a kid,
Right.
and so I wanted, I always wanted to be a Disney animator. I did a lot of what those guys told me to do. I went to art school, learned how to draw better, got a portfolio ready for a place that called Cal Arts in LA, and I got accepted there. So from there, Pixar saw my student films, and then I got the internship at Pixar, and then I was hired from that. So that's very briefly my path.
Great. So you were hired right after the internship?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So when you began, you were working in the animation department. Now you're in the art department. What made the switch?
I was on the computer, which is a tool that I was unfamiliar with and not as in love with as the pencil.
Okay.
And so I felt like I wanted to try and find out how to get in the art department so I could draw more, really. And so I would send my art to the art department, and somehow an artist named Tony Ficilli, who's a really well-known animator, he gave me my first job in doing art on Ratatouille. And from there, that work was seen by others, and then I was Steve Pilcher on Brave brought me onto Brave, and that became my full-time thing. So I've been in the art department ever since Tony helped me get there. So.
Great. And is it at all common for people to move around at Pixar?
I know a lot of people who have. Jason Deemer started as a production assistant there. He's a character designer. Dan Holland, a friend of mine, was in animation and went to art as well. So it happens. And I know people who do multiple, Tony Ficilli, he can storyboard, he can draw character design, he can animate.
So when in the process did you start working on Good Dinosaur, and what year was that, and where did you jump in?
What year is it now?
2015.
15, so it was probably 12.
2012, okay.
Something like that. The movie had a history to it. So at first I wasn't the art director, I just helped with some of the designs.
Okay.
And then around 2012, I was maybe the end of it, I was made art director on there. And so that transition happened somewhat naturally because I was an artist on it already, and then it kind of, since I had worked on it, perhaps that's why they cast me for that role. But
so did you jump on that show right after you finished on Brave?
kind of. I worked on the short called Lava.
Oh, okay.
I worked on that for about a year in there somewhere too, and then a few other small projects. I did a children's book for Brave, right after Brave. So yeah, but essentially, as far as feature film goes, it was Brave to The Good Dinosaur.
So could you walk me through a day when you come in? What's on your computer monitor? What's on your desk in the morning?
Usually I'm working on a character that the director has pitched to me to design. So I'll have images for reference on my wall, dinosaur or bird or whatever I'm doing. So I come in and I continue on that character. It's a lot of drawing, knowing that it will be reviewed. There's usually an hour where we have an art review and we show it to the director and all the artists that we're working with. And it's kind of like a time for really the director to say, this, give us direction. Like, I like the way it's going. Let's try something different here. And so it's where we get all our notes, and other artists give their opinions and stuff. And then I go back and refine it to those notes. And through those reviews, we hone in on exactly what we need within weeks or so, So it's a lot of drawing and reviews. That's kind of a normal day. But then later, as things get approved, I help the technical artists who are sculptors in the computer to build the computer puppets that will be animated. I work with them also. That's really why they probably call it an art director, because I'm directing our art into the next step.
Okay. Okay.
So that becomes part of my day. I'm in their offices a lot with them while and they're completely artists too. So it's a collaborative thing where we are just trying to keep that spirit that was in the art department into their department as we move on towards animation.
What we know about dinosaurs is changing every day. There's always new research. Was there ever a talk about, do we want to go with the most recent scientific data? Like, for example, like the T-Rexes in this movie don't have feathers, whereas most scientists believe they have feathers. Right. So what was the decision-making process there?
Yeah, mostly, I mean, we talked about all of that for sure and had fun doing it, but the meteorite passed over in our film, so we can kind of just disregard science in some fun ways.
Okay.
But we didn't. We looked at science a lot. Right. But for the T-Rexes, I think, and the Pete Sun, who's the director, would be better to answer specifically, but I seem to remember it being something like, the audience is somewhat familiar with T-Rex not having feathers, and we're also changing them into this. In the movie, they're like cowboys, which is a whole concept new also. Mm-hmm. So we didn't want to maybe clutter that idea with new scientific ideas that would maybe make the audience think something, get distracted. So it was almost like hey, they're cowboys. Let's let people just enjoy that and not be like, they're cowboys with feathers. It just becomes more. In design, you try and pare down things to its most simple read, and I think it was a story-driven decision. But we all would love to see T-Rexes with feathers, and whenever it's appropriate. Yeah. The world's not ready for it yet.
That's great. So, could you compare your experience working as character art director on this film with your experience on Brave?
For me, I'm actually a little more comfortable drawing animals, and drawing dinosaurs was a dream. I mean, I drew them my whole life, so it was really exciting for me to have this subject matter, where Brave was a little bit more, I had never drawn really princesses before or horses, and so there was a lot of, I was scared a lot more on Brave even. I was scared for other reasons on this, but it was something that felt more like more natural for me. So
what aspects make The Good Dinosaur feel like a Pixar film, and then what aspects make it different from what Pixar's done before?
Cool. What makes it a Pixar film is that it has personal emotion. Like it's a story from Pete Sun, and that makes it unique. And I think all Pixar films are unique because there's somebody's voice. And then what makes it different is, it's again comes from Pete. He wanted this film to have some quiet moments, some very cinematic moments of acting and less dialogue at times, more time for the audience to breathe and to think about what they're seeing. And it feels special to this movie.
Are there any common assumptions that about the industry that students tend to make that they should stop making?
That it's the end-all be-all, I think. I was the same, though. As a young kid, I wanted to work for Disney, and that was it. But I went to school and met all kinds of different students who had different styles and different talents that I learned very quickly are equal and on par to what I thought traditional animation, full 24 frame per second drawing was like, that was the best. But I've learned that no, there's all kinds of styles, and you can kind of make your own way, and you don't have to be at a big name studio to do wonderful art. It sure is fun, I love it, but I think to students, a lot of them focus so much that they have to get to a certain place, and that was me. That's why it's almost like giving my past self that advice is be yourself, and you'll find a spot. There's lots of wonderful spots where you can affect and entertain people.
Awesome. Well, this was incredible. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you
nice
so
to meet
much.
you.
You too.
Thanks.